The Department of World Languages and Cultures at Georgia State University presents Arabic 1001 Grammar. In this fourth part of the course, we discuss idafa or possession. In this lesson, we will discuss complex idafas, and in this first section of the lesson, we will talk about three-word idafas, three or more word idafas. In the previous lesson, we learned to say haqibat at-talib, literally the backpack of the student or the student's backpack. The word haqiba here is definite because it is owned by the student. This is what we mean by idafa or addition. We also hear the ta in ta marbuta at the end of haqiba. We say haqibat at-talib. We can make this a little more complex by saying haqibat hadha talib. We will put the word hadha for this in between the two words and make it a three-word idafa, the backpack of this student, or this student's backpack. We can look at this door and say bab al-bayt, literally the door of the house or the house's door. We can put the demonstrative dhalik for that in between the two words and get bab dhalik al-bayt, which means the door of that house or that house's door. It is very easy to use the demonstratives, this, that, these, and those, in between the words of the idafa because Arabic considers them to be nouns in the first place. A common way to use an idafa is to put this or that, or these or those, between its words. In Arabic grammar, these demonstratives count as nouns, so there's no problem here. Think of the last two words as being a phrase, and it's easy to translate. And keep in mind that demonstratives, this, that, these, and those, are always already definite in Arabic. So we can say Maktab hadal ustadh. Hadal ustadh by itself means this professor, and now we're saying the office of this professor or this professor's office. It could also mean this professor's desk. It would depend on the context. We can say ukht tilkal fatat, where tilkal fatat by itself means that gal or that young woman, and now we have the sister of that young woman or that gal's sister. We can say Beit ha'ula it-tolab, where ha'ula is the human plural of hadha, so ha'ula it-tolab means these students. When we put Beit before them, we have Beit ha'ula it-tolab, the house of these students, or these students' house. In English, we put the apostrophe after the S to make it clear that the students are plural. So let's look more closely at this. We can say haqibat tilka taliba jadida. We have three definite words. Haqiba because it's in part of an idafa, tilka because demonstratives are always definite, and at-taliba because of alif lam. Then we have an indefinite adjective, jadida, so we know that this is a sentence. The backpack of that student is new, or that student's backpack is new. We can look at the door and say Bab hadha al-bayt al-qadim. All the words here are definite. Bab is definite because it is owned. Hadha is definite because it is a demonstrative. Al-bayt is definite because of alif lam. So is al-qadim. So we know that this is a phrase, not a sentence. The word al-qadim modifies al-bayt, not the bab. It is the house here that is old, not the door, because this is a phrase. So the door of this old house or this old house's door. So when we use demonstratives in the middle of an idafa, it doesn't change how we use adjectives in relationship to the idafa. If the adjective is indefinite, as in the first example, it makes a sentence and the adjective modifies the first word in the idafa. If the adjective is definite, as in the second example, it modifies the last word in the idafa and we have a phrase. If we pronounce them in full fancy Arabic form, we say haqibatu tilka talibi jadidatun, where haqiba, because it's the first word in the idafa, is by default in the marfu' case, and it's definite because it's part of an idafa, so we mark it with a single dhamma. Tilka, like the other demonstratives, does not change form. At-talibate gets a single kasra, because as a non-first word in an idafa, it is in the majrur case, and it is definite because of alif lam, so we get single kasra. Jadida gets the tanween ad-dam character because it is indefinite, and also because it is the predicate of the sentence, and therefore also by default in the marfu' case. In the second example, Bab gets a single dhamma for the same reasons haqiba does in the first example. It is definite by virtue of being in the idafa, and it is in the marfu' case by default because it is the first word in the idafa. Hadha, like tilka, does not change. Al-Bayt gets a single kasra for the same reason at-taliba does in the example above. And here al-Qadim also gets a single kasra because it is modifying al-Bayt and needs to be in the same case. Both words are definite, so they get single kasras instead of double kasras. Now let's put a regular noun, not a demonstrative, in between the two words of the idafa and create a three-word idafa. We can say haqibat ukht at-taliba jadida. So here we have a three-word idafa, the backpack of the sister of the student, then the indefinite adjective is new. So really, three-word idafas work just like two-word idafas. We can simply put the three words in a row. The middle word shares the characteristic of the non-final and the non-first word. It is definite, even though it can't be marked as such, and it's in the majroor case. So we can translate this as the student's sister's backpack is new. If we look at our door, we can say Bab Bayt al-Fatat al-Latifa, where here we have a three-word idafa followed by a definite adjective, making it a phrase. Both Bab and Bayt are non-final words in the idafa, so they are definite but cannot be marked as such. Al-Fatat and Bayt are non-first words in the idafa, which means they are in the majroor case. Al-Fatat is the last word, so it is marked as definite with alif lam. This is a phrase, so the adjective al-latifa modifies the fatat. So this gives us the door of the house of the nice young woman, or the nice young woman's house's door. So let's focus on three-word idafas. There's nothing wrong or unusual with them. In fact, they're very, very common. The middle word is both a non-first and a non-final word. It's non-first, so it's in the majroor case, and it's non-final, so it's definite, but can't be marked as definite. It can't have alif lam, it can't be a proper noun, it can't have a possessive suffix. So we can say Mektab Shab, the guy's mom's office, literally the office of the mother of the guy, where the middle word, mother, is both definite, which is why it gets a single kasra, which really ought to be directly underneath the shadda, but I can't make PowerPoint do this. And it's also in the majroor case, which is why we get a kasra and not a dhamma. In the second example, Beitu Ukhtil Fatat, the house of the sister of the gal, the word ukht is both a non-first and a non-final word. Because it is non-first, it is in the majroor case. Because it is non-final, it is definite even though it cannot be marked as such. The same thing applies to Sayyarat Habibi Sadiqati, where sayyara is definite because it's the first word and therefore a non-final word. Because it's the first word, it's also in the marfu' case by default. Habib, the middle word, is a non-final word, so it is definite even though it cannot be marked as such. It's also a non-first word, so it's in the majroor case, which is why it's marked with a single kasra. Notice that the word sadiqati, because it ends with the possessive suffix e, does not take a case marking. So we can take a look at the same examples with their case markings on. So haqibatu, definite because it's a non-final word, and it's by default in the marfu' case, which is why we get a single dhamma. Ukhti gets a single kasra. It is definite because it is a non-final word, even though it cannot be marked as such, and it takes a kasra because as a non-first word, it is in the majroor case. At-talibati gets a single kasra because it is a non-first word, so it is in the majroor case, and it is definite because of alif lam, so it gets a single kasra instead of two. Jadida is the predicate of the sentence, so it is by default in the marfu' case, and because it is indefinite, it gets the tanweena dom character. So haqibatu ukhti talibati jadidatun is how it would sound in fancy Arabic, and almost no one would actually say it that way unless they were deliberately trying to make a point. In the second example, bab gets a single dhamma because it is the first word in the idafa. It is definite because it is a non-final word, even though it cannot be marked as definite, and it is by default in the marfu' case. Beit, because it is a middle word, is both a non-first and a non-final word. Because it is a non-first word, it is in the majrur case, which is why we see kasra. Because it is non-final, it is definite even though it cannot be marked as such, which is why we only get a single kasra. Al-fatat gets a single kasra for the same reasons as in the first example. It's the last word, so it's non-first, so it's in the majrur case. It also has alif lam, so it's definite. And al-latifa directly modifies al-fatat, so it has to be in the same case, and it's also definite. So we get babu baytil fatatil latifati if we're saying it in full form, the door of the house of the nice young woman, or the nice young woman's house's door. One place where it's very common to see multiple word idafas is when we're talking about relatives or personal relationships. So we can say Habib Sadiqatiha fi Beit Ibn Ammihi, the boyfriend of her friend, then in, so we mean is in, the house of the son of his paternal uncle, which is a big old mouthful in direct translation, but in real English comes off as her friend's boyfriend is in his cousin's house. One of the things that you will discover about Arabic is when we talk about a cousin, we have to talk about how specifically they're related to us. So there are two idafas in this sentence. Habib Sadiqatha, the boyfriend of her friend, and Beit Ibn Ammihi, the house of the son of his paternal uncle. We can look at this woman here and we can say Zawjat Mudir Sadiqi Amam Beit Jaddiha. So zawja is wife, but because she's a non-final word in an idafa, we hear the ta in ta marbuta, zawjat mudir sadiqi. Your mudir is your boss, literally the person who makes things spin. Sadiqi, my friend. So the wife of the boss of my friend, or in English, my friend's boss's wife. Then the preposition amam, in front of, we mean is in front of, and then Beit Jaddiha, the house of her grandfather, or in English, my friend's boss's wife is in front of her grandfather's house. Keep in mind that as a first semester student, no one is going to expect you to come up with things that are this complex, but they're really pretty easy to learn once you get the theory down, so it's worth going into. The wife of the boss of my friend, parentheses, is in front of the house of her grandfather. So there are two idafas in this sentence as well. The first one has three words, the wife of the boss of my friend. The second has two words, the house of her grandfather. The word mudir for boss in this sentence is both a non-first and a non-final word in the idafa. The word ibn in the first sentence is both a non-first and a non-final word. Here's some vocabulary relating to family for you. An ibn is a son. Walad is another word for son. They're pretty interchangeable. The plural is al-abna. Al-jed is a grandparent. Jedda would be grandmother. Jed, grandfather. Al-ajdad can mean grandparents or ancestors. Al-habib is a boyfriend or girlfriend. It's one of the few gender-neutral words in Arabic, especially when you say habibi, my beloved. If you need to be specific that it's a woman, you'd say al-habiba, and it takes the normal sound plurals. Al-hafid is the word for grandchild. If it were a granddaughter, it would be hafida. The plural is al-hofada. Al-khal is your maternal uncle or aunt. The plural is al-akhwal. Al-mudir is a boss or a director. The plural is mudara. It has the same wazn or pattern as hofada, grandchildren, as does zamil for colleague or classmate. Its plural is zumala. And al-am is your paternal uncle or aunt. Its plural is al-a'mam. Your family and the words that describe them are generally rather more important in Arabic culture than they are in American culture, so it's useful to know these words and to put them into context with each other in the form of complex idafas.